After not seeing him for a month, my ex-husband handed me his divorce lawyer's card without even asking, "Are you okay?" or "How are you?" Divorcing a wife who doesn't work and paying me $1,000 a month in alimony sounds like a good deal. "Take care," he said with a chuckle. Emily, standing next to him, had a similarly self-satisfied expression, her arm around his. "Okay, then let's get divorced," I said so casually that my ex-husband was a little taken aback, but immediately shared a smile with Emily. Luckily, my ex-husband wasn't a very considerate person, which made my plan easier to carry out. After the divorce papers were approved, I decided to begin my plan to get revenge on both of them. To celebrate my recovery, I was going to make them cry. My name is Sophia. I'm a 47-year-old illustrator and children's book author. I love drawing. I had two childhood friends, my ex-husband and Emily. They were important friends to me, and my ex-husband also became my husband. It all started when my ex-husband asked me out after high school, while I was attending a different college. I was surprised. I thought he liked Emily, but I couldn't resist a confession from my ex-husband, whom I secretly liked. After some thought and consulting with Emily, I accepted my ex-husband's proposal. Emily's behavior had been a bit problematic since she was young, but she remained a very dear friend to both my ex-husband and me. However, Emily had a tendency to take other people's boyfriends and then abandon them when they became obsessed with her, which caused numerous problems. Her family was worried, so my ex-husband and I would often spend time with her and spy on her. My ex-husband and I got married when we were 25. 4 years later, Emily brought her fiancé into our lives. His name was George, a professional working in a high-end company. "Nice to meet you, Sophia and John. I've heard so much about you. I look forward to seeing you in the future," George said politely, and we hit it off immediately. We'd get together on holidays and leave, take trips, or enjoy long train journeys and drinks. However, things started to fall apart after Emily got pregnant in her second year of marriage. Because my ex-husband and I had so many siblings, there was no concern about our lineage, so we decided not to have children. We both loved children, but we weren't actively involved with them. We also loved the freedom to travel and drink. Seeing families with children warmed our hearts, but it never became anything more. When Emily announced her pregnancy, my ex-husband's attitude began to change. He said he couldn't stand the smell of cigarettes, so he quit smoking and even offered to take her to doctor's appointments on his days off. I warned him, "George might get upset if you're around Emily all the time." But my ex-husband said, "Don't you have any business? He's our childhood friend and he needs help. You're heartless," she protested. I try to get things and help him as much as I can, but going to the gynecologist with him is crossing the line, I said. My ex-husband frowned and glared at me. "Why? Because that's what Emily wants, right? She says she's nervous about the exams. I can't leave her alone if she's nervous." "If she's nervous, shouldn't George go with her?" "If you go with her every time, it'll be like you're the father of the baby in her womb," I said. "Sophia, you're jealous." "You're not going to get pregnant anyway, so what's the problem?" he asked. He dismissed my concerns and instead started calling me boring. We'd hardly ever fought during our marriage, but when Emily got pregnant, everything changed. Our arguments intensified, and this didn't change even after Emily gave birth. In fact, my ex-husband started spending more time with Emily and their child, Emma. But when Emma was 6, there was an incident. It concerned who attended Emma's graduation. The day before graduation, my ex-husband suddenly started rummaging through his closet. "Ex-husband, what are you doing? I have a meeting tomorrow," I said. My ex-husband's workplace had a casual dress code, but suits were required for client meetings, so he always had a few suits ready, but they were all lying on the bed now. "Oh no, I'm just trying to decide what to wear to graduation." "What? Are you seriously considering going to graduation?" "Yeah, George can't come, and Emily asked me." "Wait a minute, that's ridiculous. It's ridiculous any way you look at it." I involuntarily raised my voice in protest. My ex-husband's face immediately fell. I knew he picked up Emma from preschool occasionally. and I'd done it when asked, but it didn't make sense for a childhood friend who wasn't even his biological parent to attend graduation. Are you still doubting me and Emily? I'm disappointed you couldn't even help. That's not the point. Anyway, I'm going to graduation tomorrow, so make sure my shirt is properly ironed, my ex-husband said, and then he abruptly stopped talking, leaving me behind and heading into the bedroom. I had to call Emily. Hi, Emily, about tomorrow. Oh, I'm sorry about tomorrow. I'm borrowing my ex-husband. But won't George be attending graduation? Won't he be upset? Sophia, what are you talking about? Honestly, I haven't told George graduation is tomorrow. I'll tell him after the ceremony. I was shocked to learn that George hadn't heard about the graduation schedule. When I asked further, it turned out that Emily hadn't even told George about any of the preschool activities yet, and that my ex-husband was acting as the father at the preschool, which made me dizzy with his selfishness. Wait a minute, Emily, isn't that incredibly unreasonable? It's disrespectful to George, and just because he's a childhood friend. Oh, what's wrong, Sophia? You're being scary. Well, I'll see you tomorrow then. I was shaking with anger when Emily hung up the phone unilaterally. Still, I finally ironed a shirt, made a tie, and saw my ex-husband off to Emma's graduation the next morning. From then on, Emily and my ex-husband started going out more often, once a month, then once a week, and finally 3 times a week. Finally, George seemed to get suspicious too, and one day he came to our house alone while my ex-husband and Emily were out. I'm sorry you're visiting me at this hour. Something's been bothering me. About them? Yes. George showed me the GPS history he'd put on Emily's car. It showed she was staying at a hotel 3 times a week. She'd been out with my ex-husband all those days, and just by looking at George's face, I knew what she meant. What do you want to do, George? I want to get back at those 2. Me too. I can't forgive them for betraying us after all this time. We secretly began plotting our revenge. First, I started increasing my income because my income had decreased significantly by doing housework and taking care of Emma. George also started working from home, and when Emily and my ex-husband were out, he would bring Emma to my house, and we would care for her together. Neither Emily nor my ex-husband realized we knew about the affair, and we were able to gather solid evidence. By the time we had gathered enough evidence and were ready to take our revenge, we discovered a shocking truth about Emma. George and I struggled with this decision, but we both decided we didn't want to hurt young Emma, so we decided to wait until she was an adult. However, despite our intention to hold out for 10 years, I fell seriously ill. I required prolonged hospitalization and, in the best-case scenario, wouldn't be discharged for at least 2 years. Although I could work from my hospital room, it was clear I would have to reduce my workload. After informing George of the situation, I consulted with my ex-husband, but my ex-husband's reaction was as if we were just having a casual conversation. I'll visit you every once in a while. Because my ex-husband didn't even ask me the name of my illness or my condition, I felt like he no longer had any love for me. Indeed, my ex-husband only visited me once a month or every other month, and after Emma's 15th birthday, he started acting strangely. Although he visited me almost every day after her hospitalization, he became distant after her 15th birthday. However, neither George nor I could figure out the reason and were baffled. Even when we asked Emma, she simply said, "Don't worry." However, we learned the reason from my ex-husband, who rarely showed up. "Hey, it's been a while." Yes, it happened. My ex-husband, dressed in his full-blown finery, walked in without even knocking. After a month of not seeing him, my ex-husband handed me his divorce lawyer's card without even asking, "Are you okay?" or "How are you?" Divorcing a wife who doesn't work is a good deal, paying me $1,000 a month in alimony, so take care, my ex-husband said with a grin. Next to him, Emily stood with a similar expression, wrapped in my ex-husband's arms. "Okay, then let's get divorced," I agreed casually, which momentarily surprised my ex-husband, but he quickly shared a smile with Emily. Thankfully, My ex-husband wasn't a very deep thinker, so my plan worked very well. After receiving notice that the divorce was finalized, I decided to begin my revenge plan against them both. I would make them cry as a celebration of my recovery. I sprang into action immediately. First, I contacted George to change hospitals. Then I told my lawyer he would mediate between the two parties going forward. George jumped into action at the same time. He and Emma moved near my new hospital and started visiting me frequently. Emma still had a somber expression, but I was happy she came to see me every day. Most of my belongings were already in the hospital room, so I told my ex-husband to throw the rest away. I didn't want to bring anything they'd touched into my new life. After the hospital transfer and George and Emma's move were sorted, I got a call from my ex-husband. I'd only been off the couch for a few minutes, but my smartphone already had 30 missed calls. I picked up the phone, irritated. "What? Hey, what's going on?" Behind my ex-husband's panicked voice, I could hear the voice of a worried real estate agent. I heard Emily yelling too, which made me feel sick. "What do you mean, what's going on? It's obviously about the house." "Why do we have to move?" My ex-husband yelled at me as if it weren't his fault. I replied calmly, "Obviously because it's my house." Ha! My ex-husband seemed to have completely forgotten, but the truth was the house we were living in was a room I rented as a workspace when I started earning a living as a freelance writer. At the time, I didn't have enough income to support two houses, and my ex-husband didn't have enough to live on his own, so he moved in with me. So my ex-husband never paid rent or bills for that room. While I did get some money from him for living expenses, it wasn't enough to support the place. Unfortunately, the lease on that room had been cancelled. It was far from the hospital, so I filed for cancellation the day after filing the divorce papers. I hadn't told him because the real estate agent, who knew about the situation, had said they would contact him. George and Emma suddenly disappeared, and our house was sold. What are we going to do about our new place? I don't know, maybe stay at a business hotel for now. As I turned on the speakerphone and started working, my ex-husband shouted in frustration, "Don't screw me over!" However, he seemed to remember something and spoke in a calmer tone. Whatever. When are you going to send the money? We're really tight on cash." "What are you talking about?" "Huh? Don't joke around. I told you I'd pay you $1,000, didn't I?" "Oh, I don't recall agreeing to that." My indifferent response was met with incoherent screaming from my ex-husband. Apparently, he thought he could get money from me, and he was squandering it. Even if he had $1,000 left, how did he plan on getting by for the rest of the month? "Hey, don't just keep quiet, say something." "There's really nothing to talk about." This stunned my ex-husband for a moment, but soon he was yelling again. I was getting increasingly irritated. I addressed my ex-husband in as cheerful a tone as I could. "Anyway, we're strangers now, so please don't contact me again. You'll hear from my lawyer." "Huh? A lawyer? Hey, wait a minute." I hung up without hearing my ex-husband's response. He tried to call back a few times, but I ignored him, and eventually the call stopped. However, my ex-husband, irritated by my lack of response, started ignoring my lawyer's calls as well. He had a childish side, but I never imagined him to be the type to hesitate to cause trouble for others. I sighed deeply at my ex-husband's selfishness. A few months later, after being temporarily discharged from the hospital, I visited my ex-husband's family home. Standing before me was my ex-husband and Emily, both small and shaky. "That's so cruel of you to tell my parents." "Oh, I just told them we're getting divorced." My ex-husband glared at me at my answer, but retreated under his father's stern gaze. I actually had a wonderful relationship with my mother-in-law and father-in-law. We'd visit and have dinner with them, even when my ex-husband wasn't around. Despite how much I loved him, I felt it was wrong not to share the details of our divorce with them, so I went to visit them. "Is it true you've remarried Emily?" "Yes, that's true. Emily, Emma, and I are going to start over as a family." What are you talking about? Your only family is Sophia. She's not my family anymore. My ex-husband's words made his father frown, as if to say, "Give me a break." My ex-husband nodded a few times, then handed me a piece of paper. It was a bill from a nearby luxury hotel. "What's this?" "The hotel bill, from the hotel we stayed at." My ex-husband pointed to the bill on the table, as if it were obvious, then suddenly collapsed to the floor. "Oh, what the hell? Mom, I didn't raise you like that." My mother-in-law gasped, earning a disbelieving look from my ex-husband. Next to her, Emily wore the same expression. "Why are you so upset? The family is changing because I'm getting married. Besides, you're going to have a grandchild, and one who's related to you by blood. Aren't you happy?" My mother-in-law looked at my ex-husband, as if she couldn't believe what she was seeing, then looked back at me. Both my mother-in-law and my father-in-law understood that I didn't want children and treated me like their own daughter. Of course, they treated my childhood friend Emily the same way, but there's always a line between a daughter-in-law and a friend. I remembered Emily complaining about this often, so I was sure my mother-in-law wouldn't be happy, and Emily should have known. "You love Emma, don't you? She's going to be your grandchild, so you'll be happy, right?" "Because she's a little girl. But half of her blood comes from my ex-husband, right?" Even after all this, Emily still gave me the creeps by showing no remorse and feigning incomprehension. At that moment, someone who had been silent until now spoke up. "Enough, you disgusting." Emma, who had been playing on her smartphone in the corner of her room, spoke to Emily without even looking up. The room fell into a stunned silence. "My dad is my only father. Blood or not, he's my only father. But you know, my ex-husband always attended your school events. I heard everything from my dad. He was always told the dates of the events only after they were over, and even the events themselves were kept a secret from him. But my dad always said I was his daughter, so I'm his daughter, and I'll never be yours." Emma glared at Emily as she said these words, then sat down next to me and adopted a more concerned tone. "You know, I thought you'd hate me when I found out, but my dad said it wasn't true, so I came here today. Emma, I love you so much. You were so kind to visit me every day when I was in the hospital. I was really happy." "Sophia." Perhaps relieved by her anxiety, Emma's eyes welled up with tears, and she hugged me tightly. "Indeed, he may be the child of my ex-husband and Emily's relationship, but he's someone I've cared for 15 years. It's impossible not to have any love for him." "By the way, Emily, aren't you surprised I wasn't surprised when I discovered Emma was my ex-husband's daughter?" "Ah." Emily looked surprised. Before she could speak, a new person entered the room. "We knew all along, 10 years ago." George suddenly appeared, understandably so, as he had recently unilaterally requested a divorce, citing irreconcilable differences. "I was shocked when you mentioned divorce. Oh, and unfortunately, you're not divorced yet. The divorce papers are still here. Didn't you notice?" "What?" I'd guessed Emily and my ex-husband weren't the type to confirm things, but I wasn't surprised that Emily, despite the 100-day waiting period for women to remarry, hadn't noticed it for months. I mean, Emily's still my wife, and Emma's still my daughter. "But since you won't have a wife anymore..." "Wait, what do you mean?" "A 15-year-old can choose her parents." "That's not true." "Emma wants mommy, right?" Emily said this and looked at Emma. Emma frowned at Emily and took my hand. Emily was taken aback by this and glared at me. Then my ex-husband suddenly laughed out loud. "So that's the situation. You two are together, huh? But too bad it's impossible for you to live on just George's salary, isn't it? Can you stop making crazy assumptions? Besides, apparently George makes twice what you're thinking. Does Emily know that?" "Huh? He's probably bluffing. Besides, it's impossible for you to work while you're sick. You're going to die a miserable death somewhere." This time I laughed at my ex-husband's huge misunderstanding. When he saw me laughing hysterically, he got angry. "You didn't know what I was getting, did you, huh?" Probably just a little more than a part-time job. No, different. My annual income is $500,000. Huh? My ex-husband's eyes and mouth were wide in shock. Emily was also stunned. In fact, over the last 10 years, I had become a popular children's book author, and my income from articles, interviews, and the like had skyrocketed. What's more, a movie adaptation was being planned soon, so my income was skyrocketing. Liar! Oh, you want to see this? I said this and showed Emily my bank account screen. It clearly showed large sums of money being deposited every month. Emily didn't know what to say when she saw it. Sophia, let's make up, huh? What are you saying? Angered by my ex-husband's words, Emily stared blankly at them and then opened her mouth. Well, if you want to get married, get married. Oh, and I'll definitely get my severance pay. Sophia, wait! I ignored my ex-husband's words, took Emma's hand, and after saying goodbye to my mother-in-law and father-in-law, I left their house. My ex-husband originally worked for my father-in-law's company, but it turned out he'd lied about leaving for sale and was fired. My father-in-law planned to force him onto a friend's fishing boat and work him until he was exhausted. Working on the fishing boat was difficult for my ex-husband, who liked to stay indoors, and he contacted me several times, but I informed my father-in-law each time, and the calls eventually stopped. Emily lost custody to George and got divorced. He seemed uninterested in my ex-husband, who couldn't afford the luxuries he had, and he didn't pursue her. She was rejected by her family and ended up living alone in a dilapidated apartment. She hadn't worked since her marriage, and because she was used to having everything done by others, she couldn't do anything herself, and there was almost no place to hire her as a full-time employee. Still, she had to pay for living expenses and child support, so she worked multiple part-time jobs and barely scraped by. After high school, Emma worked hard every day to study abroad and attend a prestigious university. Already a hard worker, her dream is to translate my picture books and make them available to children around the world, which makes me happy. As for me, my picture books are selling well, and I'm receiving more offers for animated adaptations and merchandise. My illness is also improving, and although I'm still hospitalized, my doctor recently said I could leave the hospital next year. And another thing, George and Emma visit me every day. George recently confessed his intention to remarry. I haven't responded yet, but I can't help but feel bad for him. When I get out of the hospital, he tells me he wants to live with me. While I'm trying to figure out how to respond, I work on my picture books every day, hoping for a happy future. Today, I'm weaving stories.